She set 2 wine glasses on the table. Only one of them would ever be touched. Jade Wilson is a Black American architect. She restores old buildings, reads the lies hidden in their walls, notices what everyone else walks past. For 4 years, she was married to Kang Tae-hyun, the president of the Kang Song Group, and, in a world no board meeting ever sees, the boss they call the Black Dragon, the man with the dark tattoo climbing the side of his neck. She married a man who brought her coffee at midnight. Somewhere in 4 years, he stopped opening her door. She waited at their anniversary table. A text came. "Don't wait for me." So she stopped waiting. She stopped calling. She slept in the guest room. And days before the divorce was final, she packed one small suitcase, left the ring in a drawer, and walked out of the mansion for good. She left one thing behind without knowing it, a leather diary, wedged between her books. That same night, he found it, and the first page told a story that did not match a single thing he believed about the end of his marriage. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Jade turned the second wine glass a 1/4 inch to the left until it matched the first. The table was ready. His dish, the one he always pretended not to order and always finished. A small box beside the candle, wrapped in brown paper because he hated foil. 4 years ago, in this exact corner, he had asked her to marry him with his hands shaking. Now the candle was doing all the work of waiting. 8:49. The waiter refilled her water twice and stopped asking. She kept her back straight the way she did on scaffolding, where fear was a luxury you couldn't afford in front of the crew. At 9:04, her phone lit the tablecloth. "Don't wait for me." 4 words, no punctuation he would have used. She read it twice, the way she read a load-bearing wall someone had opened without permission, knowing something was wrong, not yet knowing what. She typed, "Okay." She sent it. She left cash under the glass and walked out before the candle could see her face. The mansion swallowed her at 11. Marble, hush, the smell of lilies she had not chosen. She climbed to the second floor and turned, out of habit, toward the guest room. Her clothes had lived there for 3 months. So had she. On the desk in the study, the papers waited too. First stage divorce filing, his signature already dry on the line. She had put her own beside it a week ago, in an office that smelled of printer toner, while a lawyer talked about property she would not be taking. She opened the top drawer. The ring sat there where she'd left it, small and heavy and no longer hers to wear. She closed the drawer without touching it. That should have been the end. It nearly was. 3 days before the final hearing, the seams started to show. It began with the housekeeper. "Should I forward the wine to your new address, ma'am?" The bottle from the anniversary, it came back to the cellar. Jade set down her coffee. "What wine?" The woman blinked. "The one you ordered to his office." It was refused at the door. Jade had ordered that wine with her own card. It had never reached him. He had never known. Then the assistant, apologetic on the phone. "About Kyoto. I'm so sorry the trip fell apart. Mr. Kang was disappointed you canceled." Jade held the phone very still. She had not canceled. His office had told her. He wasn't coming. She had flown alone and hated every quiet mile of it. 2 lies, pointing in opposite directions, both aimed at the same silence. She went back through her phone that night, thumb slow, the message at the restaurant. "Don't wait for me." She looked at the delivery time, then at the log of his car, the app the security team made her keep, the one that pinged when the gate opened. His car had rolled through the gate 11 minutes before that text. He'd been home. He'd been walking up the drive when her phone told her not to wait. She sat on the edge of the guest bed and let a new thought stand up inside her, cold and straight. What if some of it never came from him at all? She didn't sleep. At 6, she went to the window with her coffee and saw the car. Gray sedan, across the lane, parked where no neighbor parked. She'd noticed it the morning before too, and told herself it was a driver waiting on someone. Now the someone never came out, and the car never left. And when she moved at the glass, the silhouette inside turned its head to follow her. An architect learns to trust the thing that doesn't fit. A wall a foot too thick. A door that opens the wrong way. A car that watches a house it never enters. She packed in 20 minutes. One small suitcase. 2 dresses. The cream coat. Her documents. Her passport. The charger. She left the jewelry in its velvet trays. She left the accounts. The cards. The keys to 3 cars. She left the ring in the drawer where it belonged. She almost took the diary. It was there, on the shelf between 2 survey manuals, brown leather, soft at the corners from 4 years of nights. Her hand went to it, then the gray car's engine turned over outside, and she grabbed her bag instead and moved. The diary stayed on the shelf, wedged where a book should be, holding everything she had never managed to say out loud. She went out through the kitchen, into a taxi she'd called 2 streets away, and told the driver just to drive. Behind her, at the corner, the gray sedan slid out from the lane and fell into the same lane of traffic. She watched it in the mirror for 6 blocks. Then the driver turned twice through the market and it was gone, and she let herself breathe, and she did not go back for the book. Taehyun came home at midnight to a house that felt subtracted. He knew before anyone told him. The staff stood too straight. The guest room door was open, the closet bare, the hangers still swinging. He stood in the doorway a long moment and did not go in. He'd signed the papers. He'd told himself it was mercy, that a man like him was a cage, that letting her file first was the one clean thing he could give her. He believed she had gone months ago, in every way that counted. He believed the silence had been hers. He turned to leave, and his sleeve caught the shelf. The brown book tipped, hung, and fell open at his feet. He picked it up because it was hers, meaning only to close it and set it right. His eyes crossed one line on the open page before he could stop them. I booked our table 3 weeks ago. He told me not to wait. Taehyun did not sit down. He read it standing, in the dark, and the house went very quiet around him. The particular quiet that comes right before something the strongest man in the room cannot control. He read until 3, and the man who never lost control lost it 1 page at a time. The diary did not accuse him. That was the worst of it. It waited for him. I suppose 4 years can turn a memory into something only one person still carries. He had not known about the table. He had never seen the restaurant, the second glass, the dish she'd ordered him. Someone had told her not to wait using his name, and he had been asleep 2 doors down while she paid the bill alone. He turned back further, hunting the shape of it. Bought 2 tickets today. I wanted 3 days where nobody needed him except me. Kyoto. He remembered Kyoto. He remembered her coming home tan and distant, and how he had let a cold thing grow in his chest because he thought she had chosen to go without him. His office said he wasn't coming, canceled his ticket, kept mine because staying home somehow felt worse. His ticket, canceled. He had never asked for it to be canceled. He found the nights next, and the nights nearly finished him. 1:42, 2:11, 3:06. Times stacked like bricks. I keep pretending I'm reading, when really, I'm waiting for the sound of his car. For months he had come in through the side garage so the engine wouldn't wake her. He had thought he was being kind. He had been erasing himself from her every night, one soft door at a time, while she lay awake counting a man who never arrived. Then the page that stopped his hands. I asked my husband if he still loved me. He didn't answer. He remembered that day. He had just learned her name surfaced in an interrogation, that a rival had marked her, and he had stood there rearranging her security in his head while she waited for 3 words. To him, the silence had been fear. I think silence is an answer too. She had written, and it had been, just not the answer either of them meant. He closed the diary at dawn and did something he had not done in 20 years. He asked for help he could not command. By 7, the study looked like a war room. He pulled everything: gate logs, delivery manifests, the internal message relay the security team ran on every device in the house, camera archives, the florist's records, the restaurant's reservation book. He did not delegate the reading. He sat with it himself, sleeves pushed up, the dragon dark along his forearm where the ink climbed. The wine came first, ordered on her card, confirmed, dispatched, and turned away at his office door by a signature that wasn't his assistant's. Rerouted back to the cellar with a note. Per Mr. Kang's instruction. He had given no instruction. The flowers, the same night, sent from him to the house, signed for at the gate, never carried upstairs, logged as received, held. The restaurant text. He found it in the relay, and his jaw set. The message had not come from his phone. It had been injected into the thread through the house server, stamped with his name, timed to land at 9, a forgery wearing his voice. Every thread told the same story backward. She reached for him. Something reached in first and turned her hand aside. He reached for her. The same something whispered that she'd already let go. 2 people leaning toward each other across a gap, and a third pair of hands widening it every night. It's not distance, he said aloud, to the empty room. It's a person. He almost missed the last file. A traffic camera 2 lanes from the gate, time-stamped the morning she left. He watched her taxi pull out and turn north. He watched, 4 seconds later, a gray sedan slide from the service lane and fall in behind it. He froze the frame and read the plate. Then he read the registration, and the registration read like a wall, built a decade too late. A shell company, clean on the surface, owned 3 layers down by a name he'd spent years keeping out of his city. A rival's front, not his people, not protection. Someone had put a rival's car on his wife. And someone inside his own house had opened the door for it. He pulled the access list. Who could reroute a delivery, kill a plane ticket, inject a message into the relay, pull a schedule, move the house detail, and leave no fingerprint doing all of it. The list was not long. In a house built on control, only a handful of hands touched every wire. He crossed off names until one remained. 20 years of service. The man who'd carried his father out of an ambush. The man who stood at his shoulder at every funeral and every deal. The man he trusted enough never to watch. Park Seong-wook. Taehyun sat with the name and felt the floor tilt. It would have been easier if it were a stranger he could have understood. This was the one door he had never thought to lock, because the lock had been standing guard beside it the whole time. He reached for his phone to call Sung-wook in, and stopped. If he called, Sung-wook would know he knew. And Sung-wook, right now, was the only man in Seoul who could find Jade faster than he could. He set the phone down. He looked at the frozen frame, at the gray car 3 lengths behind the woman who thought he had stopped trying. She had left believing he gave up. He had let her go believing she did first. And the man who built that lie was still wearing an earpiece tuned to every room in his house. Taehyun stood, took the diary, and did not call for a driver. For the first time in years, he did not want anyone from that house to know where he was going. The rain found him before the house did. Evelyn Harper's place sat at the end of a narrow lane past the city's edge. Low roof, warm windows, a garden gone soft in the wet. Jade had come here her first month in Seoul, lost and 26, and Evelyn had fed her and asked nothing. She'd come back for the same reason. Taehyun stood at the door without a driver, without a suit, without the men who usually made his arrivals mean something. Hair flattened by the rain, gray at the temples running dark, the diary held against his chest under his coat to keep it dry. He knocked twice. Inside, Jade's hand closed on the iron poker by the stove. She'd seen the gray car twice on this lane already. She opened the door 6 inches, the poker low behind her hip. It was him. For a moment, neither moved. Rain filled the space where words should go. "You read it," she said. "I did." She started to close the door. He didn't push it. He let the gap narrow and spoke into it. "I never sent that message." Her hand stopped. "The restaurant. Kyoto, that night outside your room." His voice stayed low, the way it did when everything in him wanted to break. "None of it." She looked at him, and at the book, and at the rain running off his jaw, and she did not know yet whether she could afford to believe him. "Someone lied to us, Jade." He didn't reach for her, but the silence was mine. "I made those lies easy to believe." That was the sentence that undid her guard, not the denial, the admission. She stepped back from the door, which was not yes, but was not the door closing either. He came in dripping onto Evelyn's mat, and the old woman looked at the two of them once, read the whole marriage in a glance, and went to put the kettle on. They talked for an hour without fixing anything. He told her about the relay, the rerouted wine, the killed ticket, the forged text stamped with his name. She told him about the timestamps, the housekeeper, the car she'd trusted her own eyes about when no one else would. Piece by piece, the false story came apart on Evelyn's small kitchen table, and what lay under it was unbearable in a cleaner way. They had both still been reaching. Neither had known. "There's a name," he said finally. "I need one more day to be sure before I say it out loud." She almost asked. Then she saw his face and understood the name would cost him something, and she let him keep it one more night. She should have stayed inside. She knew it later, the way you always know it later. In the morning, the rain thinned to mist. Jade needed the survey files from her office, the historic building job she'd left mid-contract, plans she was legally bound to hand back before the firm could reassign it. 2 hours, in and out, a public building on a busy street. Taehyun wanted to send someone. She refused the word. Someone. Every someone in his world was how this began. They compromised. He'd trailed 2 cars back, no house detail, no radio. The compromise had a hole in it, and the hole had a name. Because the house detail already knew her routine. Seong-wook had built it. And Seong-wook, who had spent a night watching his boss vanish off every screen he controlled, understood exactly what a man like Taehyun disappearing meant. He didn't need to be told he'd been found. He could feel the floor tilting under him too. Jade reached the office at 10. She signed for the plans, rolled them into a tube, and took the service stairs to skip the lobby cameras out of a caution that had become instinct. On the landing between floors, a maintenance door stood open that was never open. She noticed the wrong wall a half-second too late. A cloth. An arm across her chest, the plan tube clattering down the concrete steps. By the time Taehyun's second car reached the curb, the service exit was empty and a gray sedan was already 3 signals north. The place they took her was cold in a way that told her things. She didn't waste the fear. She counted instead. It was what she did when the world got too big. She made it into a building and read it. Steel frame, riveted, not welded, old. Brick infill between the columns, English bond, soft lime mortar crumbling at the joints, pre-war. High shuttered windows painted over, a roof pitched at a shallow railshed angle, and under everything, every few minutes, a sound she knew in her spine, the long, low shudder of a freight train passing close, rattling dust from the trusses. Not a warehouse, a railshed. An old railshed, the kind built beside a working line a century ago, and bought cheap by someone who wanted a place with no address that showed on a map. They'd left her hands loose enough to be careless. Men who don't fear a woman rarely tie her like they mean it. When the guard stepped out to smoke, she worked her phone from the coat lining, kept it low, and made the shortest call of her life. He answered on the first ring. "I don't know the street," she whispered, fast, flat, an architect reading a room to the one person who could translate it. Steel frame, riveted, brick infill, English bond, lime mortar, shed roof, low pitch. The windows are painted out, trains, every few minutes, close enough to shake the roof. It's a rail shed. It's old, and it's yours, or it was. A breath on the line. Then footsteps somewhere behind her, and the guard's shadow falling across the concrete, and the phone pressed dark against her thigh. The last thing she heard before a hand took the phone was his voice going very quiet. She knew that quiet. It was the sound he made right before he stopped being careful. The rail shed had a name and a ledger only Taehyun still remembered. A siding property, bought 11 years ago, written off, forgotten by everyone but the man who signed for it. He was moving before Jade's call ended. Inside, Sung-wook set her phone on a crate and looked at her the way a man looks at a problem he almost solved. No gloves now. The earpiece gone. Just a tired man who'd run out of quiet ways. "You were never the point," he said. "That's the part that should comfort you." Then what was? He almost smiled. A wall. And there it was, the thing that had been sitting in plain sight for 8 months, waiting for someone to read it right. She remembered the Kangsong Heritage Survey, last spring, an old company building, protected facade, a renovation contract. She'd pulled the original drawings and found a discrepancy any tourist would miss and no architect could unsee. An interior wall, built decades after the frame around it, thicker than structure required, hiding a void. She'd opened the access panel expecting dead space. She'd found a compartment, ledgers, transfer records, company names that meant nothing to her. She'd photographed 3 pages, habit, documentation, proof of condition before handoff, and sent the plans to legal without a second thought. She hadn't understood a single number. Seong-wook had understood all of them. The ledgers were his. Years of skim routed through shell fronts, and a standing arrangement with the rival whose gray car had trailed her north. The moment a wall Jade opened, put those pages in a legal inbox, a clock started ticking on his life. "I didn't need to kill you," he said. "That draws blood, and blood draws him. I needed him to. Let you go." A grieving man investigates. A relieved man signs the papers and looks away. He spread his hands. "So I gave you both a divorce you didn't want. Cleanest thing I ever built. You built it out of us," she said. "You were material," he answered. "Everyone is." Then the far door opened on the rain, and the temperature in the room changed. Taehyun came in alone first, which was its own kind of message, that he wasn't afraid or was past it. Sung-wook's men shifted. Sung-wook lifted a hand and the metal in it caught the gray window light, and he pointed it not at his boss, but at Jade, because he understood exactly where the leverage lived now. Stop there. He was steady. 20 years of steady. You want the pages, or you want her. You were always going to have to choose. It's what makes you weak. She left because she finally understood what you are, Song-wook said, and it was the oldest weapon he had, the one that had worked for 8 months. Say it? She looked at the dragon and she ran. Taehyun looked at Jade, not at the weapon, at her. No, he said. She left because I gave her every reason to believe your lies. It landed harder than a raised voice. Seong-wook had built his whole plan on a man who would rather blame himself in silence than fight in the open, and the man in front of him had just stopped doing the one thing the plan required. The freight came then, close and loud, the whole roof shuddering, dust sifting down through the light. Jade had been waiting for it, reading the timetable the way she'd read the walls. In the noise she dropped, hard, off the crate she'd been sat against, and the shot that came went high into a truss instead of through her. Taehyun crossed the floor inside the sound of the train. What happened between them was fast and ugly, and mostly silhouette, 2 shapes against a painted window, the metal skittering away across concrete into shadow. When the train passed, Song-wook was on the floor, and the pages were what everyone was reaching for. Jade reached first. She always had. The evidence did what evidence does when someone finally understands it. Sang-wook's ledgers, the rival's shell company, the traffic footage of a gray car tailing a taxi. It ended him and it ended the deal he'd made behind his boss's back. The men who followed him read the room and remembered who signed their checks. It was over before the rain stopped. But Jade did not go home, and Taehyun did not ask her to. The final hearing came anyway. Lawyers, a long table, the same papers, a question read out flat by a clerk. Did the parties wish to proceed? Taehyun said nothing. He didn't answer for her. He didn't touch her arm. He'd learned, at last, what his silence cost, and this time he made it the right silence, the kind that leaves room instead of taking it. Jade picked up the pen. She looked at the line where her name was supposed to go. She sat with it for a long moment, the whole marriage in her hand. Then she capped the pen. "I'm not ready to come home," she said. "I know," he answered. "But I'm not ready to end us either." The clerk looked up. The lawyers looked at each other. Somewhere, a clause went unsigned. The divorce was suspended. Not canceled, not undone, just stopped, held. The way you hold a building you mean to restore instead of demolish. Months later, Jade came into Evelyn's small house and found a package on the table. Brown paper. He hated foil. Inside, a diary, new leather, soft, blank, every page empty and waiting. On the first page, in his careful hand, "This time, don't write what I should know." And under it, "Tell me, and I promise I'll answer." She stood there a while with the empty book in her hands. Then she set it down, and she did not write a single word in it, because the whole point was that she wouldn't have to anymore. She crossed the room to where he waited, unsure, a dangerous man made simple by one uncertain thing. The diary stayed blank on the table. That was the answer. That had always been the answer. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever walked away from someone believing they gave up first, when the truth was that neither of you ever stopped reaching? Have you ever let silence speak for you and watched it say the one thing you never meant? And if someone had handed you the diary of a person you loved, would you have been brave enough to read every page? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about love, hidden truth, and redemption, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.